Hello, this is Kim Nelson. On this video tutorial, I'm going to start to work with doing an organic flower form for a cuff bangle. This the need for this video was inspired by a student's project in class, and so I'm not going to be using their work, but I've loosely designed something similar to show the steps that would be involved in working this out. I'm going to be bringing in a whole bunch of images for this tutorial, so I'll start with that. Actually, it would be time consuming to pick, I'll just start from fresh. I was going to use an old file, but I'll use this. So, picture. All right. Start with the main overall. You want to make sure that this pops up in the direction you expect it to when you do this. Remember, red x-axis line going from right to left, green y-axis line going forward and back. That's fine. So starting with this one. And actually, since Rhino sees these as simply a surface outline, a vector shape outline, I can bring in the other images because they're all the same size and just line them up on top of each other. What layer are you on? Pictures. Cool. All right, so bringing in the next one. And now I'll use end snap. Well, the reason I'm doing this is you will see this image is built up in layers in Photoshop. So there's a goodness to doing that. And lost track of where I was. Hit the wrong button, so I'll take a minute here and turn off. Okay, so it looks like I only have interesting. When in doubt, use grid snap to move things out of the way. So it's important that okay. Make sure I have all of the various parts I need. So I've got 3 of them, so I need one more. I'll go ahead and put these all in the same layer. Although I would like the original one back here. use as a size guide. So there's that one. And the last one. All right, so now that I've got that, I should have actually I want to lock that, so I have that. And apparently I am still missing one. Okay. There we go. A, B, C, D, and E. Okay. It would be very helpful to me to know which one of these is which at this point. So to rectify that, I'm going to pull up my Photoshop file that I started with. And I can line them up sequentially. As you can see, I have these petals of this magnolia flower laid out sequentially. So actually, that's the lowest one. And that's in a good position to be the lowest one. So that's the lowest one. That's the next one up. Actually, that's the lowest one. Right here. And that's the next one up. That's the next one. That's the top one. And this is the stone. Okay, so now I have them laid out according to their layer order. Fine. Okay. So now I could have developed this in Rhino. I could have taken an outline sketch and then drawn all of the leaf forms separately in Rhino. It's just more natural for me to do it in Photoshop, or in this case, actually Procreate. So I've got all of these. I'm going to group them. May as well put them all on the same layer for convenience. Turn off grid snap. Actually, Leave it on for one more minute while I move them off to the side. And now I'm going to draw the geometry I'm going to need in order to scale this and center it. By holding down the Shift key, I constrain it to a perfect square. And that's good. I know that that's 1 inch in the Photoshop file. So if I draw a reference square in the center, 25.4 by 25.4 millimeters, that will allow me to scale everything up together. So orient 2 points. Scale equals, yes, 3D is fine because it's flat line work. Corner, corner for reference, corner, corner for target. So that has now been brought into actual size. I do, however, now want to be able to center up the design properly. So a couple of construction lines. Offset both sides through point. Capturing my ellipse for the inside of this cuff. Another offset going this way. I'm just going to move this curve till it intersects the widest point of the okay. So you can see that it's interesting. I went both sides. Now there was no reason to believe this was symmetrically located, but it was pretty close. Go ahead and offset this for the other side here, because that rectangle that I drew in Photoshop, that square, was just done by eye. But by eye was pretty close. So I've got that. Now I'm going to draw an ellipse diameter. And that should come pretty close to the drawing. It's a little bit big in the vertical axis. So I will do this way. I just love it when I get a Windows Update warning in the middle of a video. Problem is they keep wanting me to have a time when I can not use my computer while they update it, and I never have such a time. So there we go. Last thing, just in case I ever want to use this for the flow curve for this, actually I'll center it first. That would be the wise thing to do. These curves are no longer necessary. This curve is no longer necessary. I'm going to grab this ellipse and all of my images. Move from center snap to 0. So now all of my images are actual size, and all of my images are centered compared to each other. I will have to orient them or arrange them so that I can, each one is centered, not just the bottom one, but for now that's great. All right, now I do want to change the way these look. I'm going to go to materials. I'm going to set this to mask and take the transparency way down. or way up, the opacity way down, transparency way up. 85 is good. I don't need color, so I'll select grayscale. And that's fine. Okay, and then I'll lock. And now I'm ready to start drawing. It doesn't matter whether or not these are centered vertically for now. I will be centering them vertically when I'm done. But to draw them, since these are asymmetrical, centering them up doesn't really offer a benefit to me. So quickly sketch these petals. Actually, white might be an easier color to see. Do some rebuilding. Actually, all these curves can be rebuilt to the same number. I'll rebuild them to 12 by 4. May as well go orthographic. I almost always work in perspective view, but since I'm trying to be quick about this, and I don't want to accidentally flip my view like I just did, I will work over here. When you're trying to keep something smooth, it's often helpful to grab more than one control point at a time. Being careful not to grab something you don't want. That's fine. Turn on Curvature Graph just to see if there's anything terrible going on. That's fine. Now smoothen that up a little bit through here. A little smoothing. All right. No reason to leave that the way it is. You'll notice that I've made everything longer than it needs to be. That's because drawing right up to the corner of something always goes wrong. You just run into trouble all the time, and or at least I do. And overlapping is easy enough to clean up later. So there we go. That's the rough outline for this. The only real point in this piece is right here. Trim that out. Trim those out. Trim this up. And then do blend curves. Adjustable to connect the pieces. And then consider where I think joints have to be in this. This actually could all be one curve. I'm not going to really worry right now about polycurves because I'm just going to make a maquette to begin with. Famous last words I'll regret probably. But there we go. It should be a closed curve when it's done. So that one's finished. And move the next one down. Okay. Think of how I want to handle this. I'll just drag it. With Shift key. And draw the next set. And it's the same way. Drawing quickly, going beyond the borders. Not making any effort to do a tight corner like that. Rebuild my curves. These two could certainly be done with low point curve, so probably do them with 10. These two have more interesting things going on in them, so I'll give them 16, more or less. Turn on the points. It's going to be hard to capture some of this detail with the low point count I have, but do what I can. I like to put too few points rather than too many, because you get a whole lot of points going. Smooth curvature becomes difficult. Everything looks like crazy wet spaghetti. Now grab these two. There is a kind of a nuanced curvature here that's going to be hard to pull off with so few points, but let's see what I can do. Yeah, I'm going to need more points on that curve. This one's fine. So rebuild this curve. Take it from 10 up to 13. It's probably overkill, but That's fine. Hit my curvature graph, see how crazy things are. Keep clicking too fast. There we go. Okay, about what I would expect. Bring a little more elegance in there. That's fine, and that's what I would expect. Okay. Tidy up. And blend curves. Join. So those are now overlapping as you would expect them to. So, next one. I would think that if I use object snap for end snap and grab the corner here and put the corner there, I should be lined up, which I am. Red's not a great idea. Fuchsia. Okay, this is a fairly involved form. I have a hard corner here. And this is a fairly complicated leaf or petal. Now there are details here that I'm not going to try and capture because I have to maquette this before I actually try and do a finished surfacing for it. So. Notice how I could have done control points to take that soft corner, but I want to retain that corner at the outside edge there. I have some object snaps on that are getting in my way. Nothing terrible though. Okay, these two would be, I'm going to say 14. Well, 13 probably will do it. This one could be less than that. These are pretty involved, so I'm going to give them 18. And turn on some control points. I often find that sub-anchor point, 1 second, one down, to be a nuisance when I'm control point editing. It's Rhino's way of holding the tangency from the flow of tangency from the end of the curve, but since I'm not trying to go for smoothness with anything, I'm not trying to merge this curve into any other curve, I don't care about that. So I will delete those with abandon when I find them being at all annoying. Once again, by grabbing multiple points, it's easier for me to make considerably large changes to a broad area of the curve without getting it too kinked or distorted. It is annoying sometimes when I find out that I clicked in such a hurry as to really not follow the curve very well. My mentor, Andre Chauvin, carving French, used to always say, slow is careful and careful is fast. And that is true. Now, it's important, I thought of this flower in levels, because first it's the easiest way to solve the problem of a really complex flower like a magnolia. But also because if you're going to fabricate this, if it's not going to be a casting, if you're going to assemble it, you would always assemble a flower like this in layers. I'm going to be designing this to be a casting, so that will be less of a concern. But it still makes a good sense as a way to approach the problem. Actually, I had made a point that I did not want to lose this curve, so that point, so take that out. And, oh, I guess I never had one there. That's fine. Now blend curve. I'm asking a lot from blend curve here as far as capturing this flow here at the end, and it didn't do a great job. I'll decide whether I want to fix that and do the same thing here. This one I think I can do a good job with. Here, straightforward. All right. If I want to finesse that more, I would have to rebuild, but I think it's okay, actually. I'm going to go ahead and join these all together. I'm going to come in here and turn on the points. Delete this point. Delete that point. Grab this joint and put it where I would like to have it. Like so. That curve is done. Slide the pictures down again. lock them, and draw this last set. Now this last set, these are the most upraised sort of petals. Question about how I'm going to handle those in bas relief still. Still thinking about it. But how to trace them becomes a bit of a challenge. And I think I'm going to treat them in different ways. This side, I will treat as a single form. And in fact, now when I do this kind of control drawing, it's a problem. Because that's a lot of very specific control points. So I can't really drop this point count much. It's at 32. To keep it, I'm going to have to go even higher. I'll go 45. That's a very dense curve object. I don't really enjoy doing that. But to keep all of the detail I've put in here, I need to. I can delete some of the points here at the end. Same thing here. There's a lot going on. I can certainly do fewer than 45. I'll go with 35. Yeah, I can do less than 35. I'm going to try 25. I do like to go as low as I can because it makes for a smoother curve. As you will see when I turn on the curvature graph here in just a minute. Okay, so let's put on that curvature graph. Once again, this is a maquette, so I'm not going to go crazy. And this portion won't even be seen at the end. I know that because I'm the guy who's strategizing what's going to happen next. This is going to underlay this top part of the petal. So there's no reason for me to even try to make that an attractive curve, except for I know it's there, and it'll bother me if it isn't an attractive curve. Having this nice smooth feeling as it comes around is worth doing. Same thing for the other side. This curve's a little less crazy, so I can build up that curve graph a little bit. So I don't mind seeing the warbling of the curve here when there's a reason for it. Like in here, this is going in and out and in. So I understand that. What I don't want to see is it doing that in areas where there's not a reason for it, like through here. There's no reason that can't be a smoother transition. That's fine. So a couple of, well, one is going to be a fillet curve, the other is going to be a blend. I'll fillet them both with 0, tidy them up, and then this upper one I will do the usual circle trim blend treatment. Join it all together into a closed curve. Now the overlap, so again, since these are getting detailed now, I'm having to be more careful about my point placement. I think that's best handled by a blend curve. This is that. Okay, this is a fairly smooth curve. This can be handled in 10. This is the fanciest curve. It can be handled with 14. This is a fairly tiny segmented curve. I can handle this with 7. All right. Do my point editing quick. I do want to catch this kind of subtle undulation. It's in the pencil drawing. And then some curvature graph. This curve in particular, because there's no reason for this not to have a lovely curvature to it. If I'm having a hard time, I'll adjust it till it's smooth and then move more than one curve at a time, one point at a time. As I pointed out, I need the undulation on this one, so I'm just going to look to make sure it makes sense. It does. Okay. So I'll do fillet curves to tidy things up. And then create my circles to trim. To my blend curves. That landed pretty much perfect as it was. And then join. And that's that. So that's that portion. I'm going to move it down one more time here so that I can get the right size stone in place. This was just hand sketched quickly, so that's not an actual stone size anybody would recognize, which cannot be tolerated. So that's nice. How big is this thing? First off, let's set a C-plane to it. From quad to quad is 15 by 9. 9 by 15 is not a stone size that I recognize at all. So I can do a 12 by 16. Or a 12 by 14. 10 by 14. I can't do a 10 by 14. Okay, I am going to go when in doubt, check. Go to my old friends and former employers, and garnet's a good place to go, but they calibrate for an oval cabochon. Come on. Fine. That's what I get for trying to be fast. Again. Gemstones. Calibrated cabochon. Amethyst will work just fine. So I can do a 14 by 10. All right. Those are calibrated sizes, so I know that it will be okay. I'll be able to find it, in other words. So this is actually the more proportionate stone I'm going to be able to use. Okay, that may not be big enough for what I want to do. But I think it will be. I think it's okay. So there's the stone. Back to top C-plane. And so now I have all of my levels of my drawing completed. There they are. So now the only one of these that matters to me is this one, which is the one that I did not scale up. Fine. Orient 2 points, scale 3D. end, end, end. These I can hide. This one I need to set up. So that it's useful. And there we go. So that's a good place to get to. So there are my petals and rough positioning of my drawing. So I need to rotate this vertically so that I can use it for a front view. I will hide this one for now. Okay, so that's my new front view, front C plane. I'm going to take this curve, also rotate it up. I had copy option on, so I got two of them. There we go. Now I'm going to use this curve to create an outline for the rest of it. Set it for the highest point. And then I'm going to try a regular scale and see what happens. I may have to do a non-uniform to get what I want. Yeah, that works pretty well to there. And actually, I don't really care about how this comes down through here, right? That doesn't matter to me much at all. Trying to think if it's worth showing you how to fix it in case you want to make it perfect some point. Okay, fine. New center line, starting from the center snap. Okay, I'm not getting a center snap off of this anymore. So area centroid will work. Use that to split off this curve. Now take this lower half and do a non-uniform scale. No change. Yes, change. No change. So that would be the easiest way to come closest to it, right there. Throw that away. Do a center line. Offset both sides through point. To get the width here. Trim off the inside. Go into my front view so that when I use curve perpendicular, I can use the from option, F enter, mirror that over, use these to trim off the inside, or the outside I should say. Don't want to delete those. fillet curve to tidy it up. Rebuild this so it's a single curve instead of a poly curve. 25 should be good. Actually going to trim it off in the middle. Turn on the points. Curvature graph on. It actually looks really good. But my drawing, me the evil designer, has a more gradual swell through here. And since this curve is going to be part of a flow kit, it's important to get it right. Good enough. Mirror. Merge curve. Looking for merge. Match is what I want, actually. Sorry. Click, click. Average curves tangency. And join them together. And that's it. Rebuild one more time so it's one smooth curve. Give it 35 points. That's more than enough. And that's done. There is the front view for my design. Now I'm going to bring back the top and hide the front for my image plane. And I want to move this so that this rectangle becomes centered. It would be nice to draw that rectangle. Actually, rather than do that, since I already know what my front view is, I'm going to analyze the length of this curve. 174.61. Oh, we'll put 609, fine. 174.609 from the center of world space. Move enter mid snap to 0. And then I'm going to offset this curve so it bisects my flower design. Offset this both sides. Till it kind of captures my flower design inside of it. Something like that. Grab all of these and move them by eye till I have it pretty well centered. Turn off grid snap, object snaps. Zoom in. That shift key that I'm holding down is causing problems because I'm not zoomed out in enough. Yeah, that's fine. Now that I have that, I can move these lines, this drawing, and this background. from end to end. And that centers everything up. I now have two of these, so I'll get rid of one of them. These two curves don't mean anything to my actual finished artwork, so I'll get rid of them. So that's my basic working drawing for this. Now, I want to figure out what I'm going to do for the actual cuff. I'm not going to do anything fancy. I don't really care. This is just an exercise, so it doesn't matter to me. But I may as well try and do something reasonably nice. So I see a width of about that. And I should start working on yet another color. I'm running out of colors to use, honestly. I am going to have to simplify the layers I've used here. All right, I want a basic kind of a leaf form. Magnolia leaves are long and narrow. So start from here. End about here. Decide where the narrowest point will be. Stay there. Try a blend curve and see what I get. If I can do something nice down here at the end, I'll stick with it. I don't want to go quite all the way to the end. I want to go close, but I don't want to get there. A fraction of a millimeter short. There we go. And that worked out fine. Join, which will break history. Mirror. Join. Delete the construction curves. And we're good. Okay. So that's going to be my basic shank or cuff. Something like that. I don't love it a lot, actually. Is it worth fighting over? Yes, it is. It is very annoying to be a perfectionist, folks. It's too narrow here. And this swells too late. Better. Okay. Since center line is actually part of the flow kit, I'll put it on that same color layer. Now, I was saying I needed to simplify my top view. Generally, I put all of my top view drawings on this pale green top. Since that color doesn't show really well, I'll make them all white, because that shows up well, more or less. Actually, it doesn't show up any better than the green. So what I'll do instead is I'll lighten the color of the green. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. So I need to get a maquette of just the shank, of just the basic cuff. To do that, I'm just going to extrude this straight down. Solid. Thicker than I need it. Going to flow that along the flow curve. First, I need to make sure that this curve matches this curve in math. This curve is 35, I believe. Yeah. I'll make this 35 as well. Gives me a more accurate flow. Just like so. I'm going to extrude this straight out. Check the direction, make sure it's pointing outward so that I can use it for a Boolean. It is. Throw this object away. Take this object and flow it. Starting with the front view curve and ending, sorry, again. And throw that object away. Because what I really wanted was a solid object here that shows me what I've got. Now, see how it has a curved back? That curved back isn't terribly useful to me. It isn't. So, before I do that, actually it's fine. I do want to copy this to clipboard because that could come in handy later. I'll put it in storage. That's going to help me to visualize how thick to make my flower petals. Because that's my next step. My lowest petals are these two. So I'm going to start by extruding those straight down. Cat, yes, solid option. I'm going to keep the curve selected with it for now and move it up enough so that I have an elevation difference. My next level are, actually I'm going to have a layer where I put the ones I've used on. Oh heavens, oh, go ahead and put them on the light blue. So the next one is this plate right here. Go ahead and extrude that straight down. All I care is that it's too thick. Select the plate I've extruded and the curve. Vertical C-plane. Move it up. Next level are the three. Extrude those straight down. Solid, yes. Move them up, vertical C-plane. The last elevation of petals are these two. These are going to be very hard to see in that spider's nest, so I will remove them. And once again, I'm going to extrude these so they are too deep. And move them up. Now, the problem that I'm starting to face is that this ends up being taller than my cuff. Need to grab these two elements and even lift them higher. Go ahead and put these curves. That's actually, well, it's about right. Put these curves onto that light blue layer. So, seeing where I have problems with depth, really only with the purple ones so far. So, grab the bottom surface, pull it down. Just has to be deeper than the cuff. Theoretically, this only has to be deeper than the other surfaces intersecting with it, but it doesn't take any extra effort for me to go ahead and pull it down as well. And that gives me what I need. Now, I'm looking at this and I'm realizing that I have a general problem with my flat portion of this in the center, and that is that it's going to cause me a lot of trouble having it this thick. But I'm okay with it, I think. Because as I do more involved sculpting of these, I will make them not so bulky. Okay? So I'm going to take all of these and their curves. Nope, bad idea. Didn't mean to do that. I meant to hit select objects. There we go. I'm going to flow them along the curve. So there they are. I obviously missed a piece. So that's what those look like float up into the air. And I'll go ahead and extrude a cutter, verify its direction, and use this to Boolean difference from each one of these. Okay. And so that's a useful thing to have. I would like to reflow this block. I could just reflow the flat one there, but it's going to become very complicated geometry. Every time you flow something, it becomes more and more complicated as a piece of physical geometry. So do a difference here. And in so doing, I have created a reasonable 3D representation, maquette, of what this cuff would look like, or could look like. Okay? Now, that's all well and good. However, I would like to reflow it so that it makes more sense for advanced surfacing. And to do that, I'm going to grab all of these extrusions in my original curves, and I'm going to move them back out of the way. And I'm going to select my original curves, and put them back on their original layer. Go ahead and move the stone back to join them. Although it's down on the top C-plane. So now that I've done that, this is actually going to create a copy of this. I am going to flow this back the other direction. Including the curves. It's called a reverse flow. At least I call it that. But this time, instead of flowing along the outside curve, I'm going to flow along the inside. So actually, before I can do that, I need to measure the length of this. Oh, layer is locked. That would have gotten in the way eventually anyway. Analyze length. 147,811. Grab this, move it. To 0. I'm going to put this on that same layer so that the two flow kits don't get confused. Analyze length, just double checking. 147,811. 147,811. I'm going to rebuild this to 25. Actually, I'll leave it at 35. That's actually a good point count for this. And rebuild that to match. So I have matching math, matching length. And now I will grab that geometry plus this geometry. And this time I will grab the inside and the flat. Having done that, I'm going to group these together and put them in storage. And while I'm in storage, I'll take this out and move it over to join its companions here. Except for I messed it up by not going straight. There we go. This red curve should join the original top view curves. I'm going to put all of these on the same layer. And what I've achieved, see, the peril with flowing from the inside curve when you start modeling is that it expands everything towards the outer surface as you do so. And you can see that in action here. How I started with the outside, which is a longer curve, so I have bigger geometry. And then as I floated, everything else compressed inwards. Now going from the inwards going out, by copying that geometry and reverse flowing it, this now will allow me to work from a flat back and with straight extrusions. And doing it with the curves as well means those curves are all well situated for more advanced sculpting, which is what I'm going to want. Okay, so my two flow kits, outside, inside. My two maquettes forms, one the flat extruded down and flowed along the outside, and then the revised one after taking that flowed geometry and flowing it back down flat from the inside curve and having my actual maquette here, three-dimensional. which is what this represents. See, this looks the same size as this, right? This looks smaller. But when all of this is flowed along the back sheet, it's going to all expand and become this. And this gives me predictability. That's what I'm always looking for. I'm looking for predictability. Sculpting from the top down is much more difficult than sculpting from the bottom up. And this sets me up to be able to sculpt from the bottom up. That's going to be very important to me because as I move forward with this, I'm going to want to be able to adjust things going up and down. For example, I'm going to want all of these forms to sink in the middle. Everything is going to sink towards the center. These are going to swing way down. I only need to maintain the height elevations where they're important. Here, it's important. The rest of this can drop down to where it's almost on top of this, right? And so on. So as I sculpt each one of these petals now so that they make sense, I have a much better position to do that from. Okay, so that is it for this video. I hope you found it helpful. The next video, should I get to it on this project, I will go ahead and do finished surfacing. This is maquette surfacing. There are 3 levels of surfacing on a CAD model. Maquette surfacing, finished surfacing, and detailed surfacing. This is the maquette surfacing. This defines the block form of the object and prepares, and I set up so I can actually do the finished surfacing. The finished surfacing will define all the 3-dimensional modulations of the object and will be done with hygienic surfaces, surfaces that I can use for further development and creating deeper and deeper detail. The detailed surfacing is where the creases and the petals and all of that will be taking place. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching.